So welcome in. Come on, one and all. You're very welcome. Come on in if you're coming into the main auditorium. If you're joining us on catch-up or online, welcome as well. So we are really honored now to welcome another VIP from within our fabulous host state of Indiana. We've got the president of Indiana University with us, who, by the way, is the first woman to hold that role. Absolute superstar. So you'll get to meet Pamela Whitten very shortly, but she's going to be, so of course she is a huge champion of innovation, of research, of entrepreneurship across all of the university's campuses. But she'll be joined by someone who I had arguably my favorite GEC conversation with when I was in the Middle East, an award-winning business professor, a former venture fund director, a national leader in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, particularly out of the Entrepreneurship Center at UNC's Kennan Flagler Business School. I'm talking, of course, about the inimitable Ted Zoller. So let's welcome to the stage Ted Zoller and Pamela Whitten. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ted. Good to see
you. So, here we are.
Here we are.
President Whitten, I'm so delighted to have some time with you and to unpack the work that you've done. Just to let the audience know a bit, President Whitten is an international expert in the subject of telemedicine. She has over 100 peer-reviewed articles, 2 books on the topic. At Michigan State, you made your way from assistant to associate to full professor to assistant dean, associate dean, full dean.
The good old days.
That's right. That's
professor,
right.
The best job in America.
And you were provost at the University of Georgia. You were president at Kennesaw State. And in April 2021, your life changed quite a lot. You becoming the president of IU.
That's right, I hit the jackpot.
No question. It's one of the most impressive universities. And one of the things I wanted to call out about your background, and you'll talk probably more about this, is the strategy around your 3 pillars. Mm-hmm. And all 3 are going to be dear to us here at this organization. But first, providing broad access to education, making sure education is available to everyone. Secondly, pursuing world-class research, scholarship, and creative activity, and I love the fact that creativity is added to that equation. And 3, really committing IU to improving the economic, social, civic, and cultural health of Indiana, for the Hoosier State. But one thing I just want to point out to the audience, President Whitten has done some remarkable things in building the infrastructure here for IU and your campuses. It's not just one campus, it's multiple campuses, including right here in Indianapolis, and that work we just learned more about. But there are now 2 Research One rated campuses. Nice work. One thing that blew whatever hair I have left back was the fact that you won a $138 million grant from the Lee Endowment to build the IU Launch Accelerator for Biosciences, which is super impressive, and have done similar work in microelectronics, amassing a substantial resource there. And the foundation of what you've done is IU Innovates, where you're bringing all your campuses together, all your faculty together to transform what would otherwise be a stovepipe type of situation in higher ed. Is that right?
Sounds good. Are we done?
Well, you know, clearly we have an authoritative leader here, and we're delighted to have a little time with you. President, this is maybe a long question, but pardon me. Research universities today are different types of beasts. You're expected to be more than just centers of learning. You know, universities in the past have been really asked to be knowledge centers. They're now seen as key drivers of economic development and innovation. Mm-hmm. How are you aligning IU's research enterprise, your translational capacity, and your innovation infrastructure so that you'll position the university as a statewide hub, as a centerpiece for this work? And what investments and initiatives are you prioritizing now as to be a destination of startups, industry partnerships, and scalable ventures, not only taking the companies that are early in the process, but actually the growth chain to make them impactful ventures that will be impactful for the humankind. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to welcome anyone who is not from Indiana to Indiana. We're always so glad to have anyone come visit our state, the Hoosier State. I hope you're having a wonderful time here. We think it's the best place in America to live. And we are home to a couple of outstanding universities in the state of Indiana, and one of them is Indiana University. It's a long history of just a really tremendous institution. And as you referenced, it's much bigger and more complicated than people realize. We're not a system like you would see in North Carolina or California or Georgia. We're a freestanding single university with our own board of trustees, but we are comprised of our flagship campus in Bloomington with about 48,000 students. We now are home to IU Indianapolis. It used to be IUPUI, it was Purdue and Indiana together, and we split, and now we're home to about 25,000 students. And as you referenced, this year, IU Indianapolis became its own freestanding Research One university, which just means top-tier research university. So we have 4 in the state now: Bloomington, Indianapolis, Purdue and West Lafayette, and Notre Dame. We also have 5 regional campuses spread throughout our campus that do really important community-based work, and 2 sub-regional campuses. And we also have the biggest medical school in the country, is at Indiana University, and it's really a top-notch school, very competitive. This year, 6% of the applicants into next year's first-year class got accepted into med school here. It's really a tremendous school. And with that size and complexity comes opportunity as well, right? And so when I came, obviously, we had a long history of really tremendous scholarship and research in all levels, from bench research and scientific research to best practice research to creative work. I mean, we're very strong in arts and humanities as well. And we were all over the place, though. We were doing, if you look at research expenditures, a number that's put out by the NSF, we were sitting a little over $700 million as an institution for all research expenditures. And we got very focused on lanes that made sense for us to invest in as an institution. And one of them, for example, was recognition that we are down the street from one of the biggest naval bases in the country, which always surprises people that one of the largest naval bases in the United States, called Crane, is in Indiana. And don't look out the window. There actually is no ocean or big body of water in the state of Indiana. But it's a tremendous facility, and we had done some work with them, but in recognition of the work that they needed and the state needed, we did some intentional work to elevate our growth in some of those partnership areas. One you alluded to. So we made a $111 million investment in microelectronics, added new degrees in the field, brought in new faculty, have some exciting new partnerships with Crane, specifically in field of microelectronics, semiconductors, and have very rapidly actually become very, very good in that field as well. We also leaned into recognizing our strength in health sciences, right? And so we talked about the medical school. I think it's number 13 in terms of NIH funding for public universities, and recognized all the different ways that should be embedded in all the things that we're doing. And so grew a couple of interdisciplinary institutes and centers related to health, and the IU lab that maybe we'll talk some more about in just a minute as well. Had very targeted hiring initiatives, strategic hiring initiatives related to specific areas and clusters. And 3.5 years later, we went from a little over $700 million in expenditures to last year in 24, we hit $980 million in research expenditures at IU. And I see no reason, frankly, that we won't be passing the $1 billion club this year as well. But it's all been very, very, very intentional moving forward as well.
Outstanding. As we think about sustainability and moving the region forward, the state forward through the university, thinking about talent, and this is a mix of people from different walks of life, people not only who are innovators, but people who are involved in translation, involved in commercialization. How have you been intentional in building kind of networks, mentorship programs, social capital, and maybe an entrepreneurial ecosystem to enhance that work and enhance the performance of our entrepreneurial economy?
Mm-hmm. So it really all winds back to the basics, and you alluded to this in your introductory comments. And so when I started in the summer of 21, and as we began to think about what we wanted to do as an institution, for a strategic plan, which you certainly we see in higher ed, but not like a lot of the companies you work with, large and small. We decided we were going to break the cultural mold a little bit of higher education. And so at universities, commonly in the past, when you did a strategic plan, that was code for you got a whole bunch of people together and you wrote couple 100-page document, and there was something in there for everybody, right? And then, just to be very frank, you put it on a shelf, and then you pulled it out 5-10 years later when it was over, and serendipitously you would hit a bunch of the stuff, and then said, yay, it's a success, and you move on to the next one. And so we decided, no, we're going to break that mold. We're not going to do it this way. And so we sat down and we said, what's our mission? What are we really here to do? And we recognized there were 3 pillars that we call them that we're here to do. First and foremost, we really are about serving students. That's why we exist in all capacities. And so the first pillar is really about all the things we need to do to make our students successful and have a great experience at IU. And that certainly is quantifiable things like improving graduation rates and retention rates and addressing affordability. But it's also the pieces that create an amazing experience and opportunities for students outside the classroom as well. The second pillar, second reason we're here, frankly, is to do groundbreaking discovery, research, creative activity. That's what we are here to do as an institution. And so we talked a little bit a few minutes ago about how we very intentionally grew a lot of those areas. But of course, much of that is tied to the opportunities and experiences for our students and our faculty as well. And then the third pillar, which was a little bit different just in terms of the freedom of saying it out loud, was the recognition that Indiana University is the flagship university for the state of Indiana. We are. And as such, we certainly have a global presence, and that will never change. The work that we do around the world will always be a priority. But we also owe our state. It is part of our responsibility to make Indiana the best that it can possibly be. And that certainly, in large part, refers to economic development. And so when you take those 3 pillars and what they do, and then you wind to the part of your question about how you morph into an ecosystem so you're successful at that, we had to take a hard look at the infrastructure we had in place, the incentive structure we had in place, the reward structure that we had in place to facilitate people in our university, across our university, affiliated with our university, having ideas, then getting the support in terms of startup knowledge and the ultimate networking, and then ultimately the funding that would enable us to be a university that contributes and participates in that way. And so we did. We created a wonderful new infrastructure that isn't just intended for Bloomington. It permeates all of IU, called IU Innovates. We hired a rock star named Julie Heath to come in and be our inaugural director.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys are great.
Wait a minute, we have to try again. Julie's backstage, so let's let her hear it.
Yay, Julie! And 18 months later, frankly, we had more initial demand than we ever thought we would in terms of particularly students coming forward with great ideas and wanting kind of the pre-incubation help all the way through the incubation help as well. And now there are other parts of the infrastructure we're working on. And so if you're not familiar with universities, oh man, we define bureaucracy or attempts. We're very focused on process, if you will. And so one of the things we need to do is come up with better incentive and reward structures for our faculty, for example, through promotion and tenure guidelines and annual evaluation guidelines, to be rewarded for taking risks themselves with good ideas they have. And so there are other areas that we're working on to keep boosting the ecosystem at the university.
It's a daunting job to do what you do. Disciplines are set up in such a way, and you're presiding over a set of campuses, all of whom are driven by disciplines who build things in silos. And I know IU's been a champion of this kind of work. We've got Don Karatko sitting in our front row, and Don is one of my mentors. Don was at this work 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So IU's always been in the forefront, but it occurs to me that, as president, you have to be pretty intentional about breaking down those silos, so that not only are you able to bring faculty together on a single campus, but actually build an innovation infrastructure across your campuses. How have you gone about doing that?
Well, so there's multiple answers to that. Everything everything's complicated, but sometimes you really have to get back to the basics too. And so this is in part going to be the unsexiest answer you're going to get this whole forum, and that is our university had a long-standing entire budget model across the institution that made us operate in a way of total silos and decentralization. It's called RCM, Responsibility Centered Management in Higher Education. And it's in theory great at incentivizing individual units. And I'm talking departments or colleges, right? But what it doesn't do is it basically makes it every man for himself. And so what it doesn't do is create a system that incentivizes people to come together across disciplines and work together across schools and colleges and campuses, et cetera. And so we're in part of the 5-year phase. We're a $5 billion entity, so there's a lot to do of bringing that more back to be a hybrid. And that in itself has already changed how we're seeing people come forward in terms of projects they're doing or hiring initiatives we have across campus now. People from totally different departments come together to do these interdisciplinary hires of frankly, elite faculty that we're trying to recruit here as well. So some of it is just basic form and cultural things that you have to think about, which isn't very complicated. And then some of it is also just frankly elbows out. We're doing it, right? We're doing it. So we are going to create spaces and places on every campus. We're going to create forum. We're going to create opportunities. We are going to publicize and tell people stories. For Julie Heath, I'm supposed to hold up, for example, publications we do where we show off particularly our amazing students and their stories, because what does Julie like to say? To celebrate is to emulate, right? And so to make sure that we get the word out about what's going on. And then it's also connecting across areas. So, I always joke I'm the only person that will never run for office in the state of Indiana that has intentionally visited all 92 counties in the state of Indiana. and that literally has been in part to create these partnerships and find out what their needs are and how we bring that together as well. And so if there's a theme of this kind of wandering answer, it's that there are many different complicated pieces, and the secret sauce is getting them going and then finding ways to connect it all together.
President Whitten, we oftentimes in academics talk about the university as being like the church. Mm-hmm. It's not quick to change. It's, sometimes limited itself because of the way it's structured. And, I've already can tell that you're not of that mindset. But taking risk is not in the core function of the university in most cases because of the way it's motivated. I'm curious, as you start to build a university-wide culture of innovation and entrepreneurship, how have you taken risks? How specifically have you put yourself out there? Is it just through incentives, or is there a cultural change that's fundamentally supporting the whole model?
So I would say it's all of the above, right? So we've referenced a little bit of the repositioning of the aircraft carrier, right, which has to happen. Because you're right, universities are big and cumbersome, and we really, really like to focus on process, sometimes at the expense of outcomes. Not always. And we're not shortcutting process. One of the beautiful things about universities is we have so many smart people, we really do, with great ideas. And you want to have a mechanism to bring that into play, right? So there's shared opportunities for coming up with great ideas and establishing procedures for how things will operate. So there's that piece that certainly continues on at the institution as well. But then there's also a time when you got to move fast, right? And so you have to, in thoughtful ways, come up with decisions. And sometimes that means you're ultimately making decisions about how resources are going to be allocated strategically. So you decide, for example, $111 million in a microelectronic systems. Or we just announced in Bloomington, on the Bloomington campus, we're about to invest $75 million to really roll out and expand engineering in Bloomington. Now this is also, in an ecosystem in higher ed where there are interesting budget cuts and challenges, right? And so we are being very thoughtful about the budget cuts are going to be in areas that make sense, but we're not going to do that at the expense of the things that we know we need to do for the university we want to be in 10 years. And so we're making some of those hard decisions. Sometimes everybody's not happy with all of them, but the little secret is nobody's ever happy with anything, right? So you might as well do the right thing, as well. And so
change is hard. Culture change is hard, especially in an institution.
It is.
And not only providing kind of that maypole for people to bring their work together, but also creating a model where they can collaborate. Mm-hmm. You'd mentioned, and I'm mindful of the fact that we're 1 minute away. They will gong us after a while. But Rebecca Wing, whose session was right before that, was phenomenal. And I'm so glad that was there. And the president of Purdue is next. So we can go into the red zone. That's my thinking. I've got one more question.
Oh.
I'm just joking. So
I'm sorry, you can't say the word Purdue. And by the way, Purdue is a great partner, really, and a great school, and we love working with them. But if you say the word Purdue, I have a Pavlovian response to go 66-0 on the football field this year against Purdue. So sorry.
See, I appreciate that because I'm from UNC, and that's the way we feel about Duke, by the way. Go Tar Heels, that's all I have to say. Okay, last question. You've been to every county in this state. How have you been intentional and thoughtful about how you bring the power of IU to encourage economic development and prosperity in not only our urban centers, but our rural communities?
It is, first of all, I have to say, it is a joy to go anywhere in the state and represent IU because almost without exception, I'm just going to put it out there, we're the beloved school in the state of Indiana. I mean, truly, people love and appreciate IU, and it doesn't mean they don't love other universities, but it's a great entry point into any kind of meeting, right, to be coming from IU. And truly, it's really as simple as bringing together who we are. So who's an IU student that's in the audience today?
All right.
Okay, so you guys know how great you are. All I have to do is bring an IU student into anything, it's over. It's wonderful. Everybody embraces them, loves them, appreciates them. They're thoughtful. This whole Hoosier hospitality and humility is real, almost to the detriment sometimes. We gotta probably brag a little bit more about ourselves. Certainly, our faculty are the same way, and so I think it's important to stress that it's not the Pam Whitten Roadshow that's going to get us where we want to be. In the end, Indiana University is truly about the extraordinary students that we have now. Who we really hope will stay in the state of Indiana after they graduate, and our exceptional faculty, who, to their credit, when we did the 3 pillars that I referenced a few minutes ago, with the 3rd pillar being service to the state, and I didn't know how people would take that given what a global university we are, and our faculty embraced it. They love it. They're asking all the time, find me a partner in the state, find me a place to work with, in the state in terms of the work that they want to do as well. So it's really, as it always is, it comes down to just the extraordinary people that are involved with Indiana University.
Well, I just want to thank you. What a privilege it's been to be here. Not only are your students phenomenal, but your faculty is being called out very actively here. I've mentioned Don. I know Sammy Desai's here. David Aldrich will be here. These are some of the champions of our work. And I just want to thank you for hosting us so we can learn a bit about what you're doing. And there's some real movement here in Indiana. I guess we are for the bold. So
there you go.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Go Hoosiers.